James is reviewing an Agatha Christie novel.
Yeah. The Poop in the... Oh, no, it's not. It's the Pop In De Schoorsteen. I'm not making fun of Dutch.
No, that's not
Dutch
nice.
culture is...
Awesome.
I gotta say, one of the most tolerant, or the Netherlands, one of the most tolerant societies in the world, and I can't say that about pretty well any part of Europe. I mean, England's even becoming a little less tolerant as they tolerate intolerant. Well, I have to call them cults, but religious groups and other things. So
Yeah, you just can't do it. You cannot bring in intolerant people and expect things to stay enlightened.
It's arrogant, to think that, we've got such a superior culture, it's just going to rub off on everyone, and they're going to become tolerant. What's really happened is the English or the Brits have become more intolerant of certain things, like of Christians, for example. In some places, they're not allowed to ring church bells anymore, and they're not allowed to proselytize for their religion in certain groups. So the police will actually prevent proselytizers going in. I'm not talking about Jewish proselytizers, from going into certain areas, saying that that what they're doing is stirring up trouble. No. The trouble is there. People have got to be able to put up with freedom of speech, and part of freedom of speech is going around and trying to proselytize for your belief system. I mean,
you may not like it if the Jehovah's Witnesses show up at your door.
I don't care for it particularly, but it's not, or may not like having them. What it's more like is like just having them stand on a corner. That's their right.
Yeah.
And in England, I gather, if someone goes into at least certain areas where certain religious communities, I'm using the plural, but it's not really that, and just stand on a corner, they'd be rousted out by the police and threatened with being arrested. So it's unacceptable in a democracy, I'm sorry.
Also, in a place with freedom of religion, that is a part of being a Christian. You're supposed to go out and try to
spread the good word or the bad word or whatever.
Whatever. It's just a part of it. So, yeah.
And really, the hammering down on church bells is privileging. How do you like that, you Fogoshes? That's one of your words. Privileging a certain religion. There's a certain religion that traditionally has not allowed the ringing of church bells for Christians. So what they're doing, the Fogoshes, they're actually allowing a particular type of law that starts with SH to be imposed on indigenous people.
Yeah.
I want to make it perfectly clear that I'm an agnostic. And I'm an atheist when it comes to any particular conception of God that's ever come down the pipe. I'm an agnostic in this sense. I'm willing to accept the possibility that something like God or a God exists. Or gods. But any conception I've ever run across has seemed unacceptable. So I guess I'm an atheist when it comes to any particular God there might be out there. God or God. So don't make a straw person out of me, okay?
Yeah.
Or you can do it, but anyone with any sense, anyone with any intellectual honesty will recognize how intellectually dishonest you're being. So, Agatha Christie. It's not so much a translation. It's the doll. You can see a doll here in the chimney. And I'm sure I said it incorrectly because I think it's Schornstein, the cognate in German. Let me see if I can somewhat say it. Schornstein. In Dutch it means chimney, I think. The doll in the chimney. I think this is related to the German Puppe doll. So what I've been doing is teaching myself Dutch. Now this isn't introductory for me with Dutch. It was close to introductory for Norwegian when I was doing it with the Beljar fairly recently. Is that about a month ago I finished that? And here's my equivalent of having a bilingual. I've just got hold of I must have close to half of the Agatha Christie novels. I used to read them when I was a teenager, like you liked reading Stephen King. I like reading Agatha Christie. So it's called By the Pricking of My Thumbs, Something Evil This Way Comes. That's a quote from Macbeth. And seeing that witches figure so importantly in this novel, dolls do too, but they should, when the Dutch translated it, they should have just translated the title. They really should have. But maybe they didn't want to because it would have been a quote from Shakespeare and they would have been messing around. But they had a quote from Peer Gynt by Henrik Ibsen, that'd be in Norwegian originally. And they translated it and stuff like that. So they didn't go with the English translation of the Norwegian. So what this will be a review, but also like what it was with the Belgian. I'm not encouraging anyone to do what I've done. So what have I said? I finished it this morning. Finished 4 times. Okay? So I finished going through it 4 times today. But I didn't do it all in one day. It's just like each page I go through 4 times. And that's not reading. One of the times when I go through, I'm just trying to put sometimes it's for parts of words, but for each word, aside from personal and place names and personal names, a translation into English, or back into English, kind of like, for each word. So you can see, maybe he just did that on a couple of pages. You'll see. This wasn't like a New Year's resolution.
No.
Over and done with for 10 days.
He's very focused. And I'll say something and he'll be like, wait 5 minutes and I'll tell you.
Yeah, because it takes me, that would be doing the last 2 stages, which would be, what I do initially is take 1 page at a time, read it. And for the Dutch, it would be basically 2.5 minutes. Reading the equivalent in English, I'm a slow reader. It would take me about a minute to read. I'm kind of proud to be a slow reader. And then, so it would take me about 2.5 minutes. Then what I do, and it would for the Dutch, it would take me somewhere around, a little less than 15 minutes, depending on how much dialogue there is in a page. Like if it's a page like, I can remember one of these pages, see, like there's hardly any dialogue there. It's longer to go through. Yeah, that's, you can see, longer to go through than some of these pages at the end. There's just a lot of dialogue in the resolution. Like here, there's a lot less to read there. But I don't know, maybe 15 minutes to go through and put down a word. Oftentimes I'll abbreviate or something like that. It's a sort of my own personal shorthand. It's not very short, but it shortens things somewhat. And then I'll go through it with my equivalent of a bilingual. I'll find the equivalent pages, because generally the one page doesn't correspond with the other.
Yeah, speaking of shorthand though.
Mm-hmm. That would help, is that what you're thinking?
I didn't realize you were really into that. Okay, I'll tell you later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would probably help. I've tried learning shorthand, and it hasn't been short enough for me to learn. There are some things that I try and they don't work out for whatever reason. Anyway, I got to admit there'll be things like New Year's resolutions that don't work out for me, but it's a much lower percentage than it is for other people, many other people. So then the third time I go through this, and that's what'll take me about 4 minutes or something like that, is I'll just go through and correct. So there'll be some things that I won't be able to figure out, or I won't have figured out. In other words, I thought, okay, that's basically it. And I go, no, I'll make it more exact by putting in, well, what's the original, the Agatha Christie original. And then the last time I go through, and with the Dutch, it usually takes me 2 minutes, maybe a little bit less. But basically, I'm still only, there's truth in advertising. I'm about half as fast in Dutch as I am in English. Is that bad? Yeah, it is. But is that good? Yeah, it is too. Because I've gotten somewhere. I can actually read it at this stage. So what I've done with that process, now, I've started rereading this book, so I'll re-review it. I've got through 60 pages, is it, of it? More than 60. Yeah, it's almost 70 pages, so that's about a third of the book already. So that's reading it a fifth time. And if I do it what I did with the bell jar, I'll read it a sixth time in Dutch. So basically what I've done here is the equivalent of one semester course. It's about 90 hours of work. That doesn't seem like that much, but sometimes like last night or yesterday, I did 22 pages, and that's basically, it would take me about half an hour to go through one page using the process that I use. So what does that mean? I did 11 hours of work just on Dutch yesterday. Boom. And most of the days, except for the week or so, a little less than a week that I was on holidays, the last 3 weeks, it would have been 2 of the last 3 weeks, I was putting in 8-hour days on it. 8-hour days. And it was, you didn't hear me groaning and moaning. Oh man, I wish this were over. I enjoy doing it. Plus, I got to really read the thing. The novel, I would have read it. So I went through it once. So basically, I've gone through this in the last 3 weeks. 2 of the last 3 weeks. I've gone through it 5 times.
It keeps you focused on that, so it distracts you from other things.
Like my back.
Exactly.
You might hear me moaning and groaning about my back, but not that much. Anyway, it's. Do I encourage anyone to do it? No. What you do is, hey, there's a guy who used to teach, maybe still teaches it, learning in the psychology department out at the University of Lethbridge. He doesn't know maybe he knows a few things about learning. I'm sure he knows he doesn't have Velcro ties for his shoes. So, Jess Baby, that's not his real name. The baby's not part of his real name. Dude, I'm sure you can tie up your own shoes and maybe do up your own buttons. You don't have snaps or whatever. I've got snaps here, but I can actually do my own buttons too. So I'm sure dudes learned a few things, but you don't know how to learn what I know how to learn. And
take scissors and trim your Band-Aid words.
I know.
Okay.
I was trying to get it.
No, it's fine.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I don't care.
He doesn't know how to teach learning. He doesn't know how to learn himself. I mean, am I an okay teacher?
Yes.
Okay, I'm an okay teacher. And
well, we'll see
Pauline says oftentimes I'm maybe a little bit better than an okay teacher. And the reason why, I accept her diagnosis. Hey, the reason why is I learned how to teach myself from my parents. They're both teachers. I'm pretty good at learning things. How do I learn things? I teach them to myself. So what I'm saying is we all have many different possible learning styles. The way you learn, I suspect the way you learn one thing is different from the way you learn another thing. And maybe different, I think we have different learning styles depending on what age we are. Hey, like when we're kids, we sit and sing stuff, we're learning language, right? and we seem to absorb it in a very different way than people. You see, this Jess baby was saying, you don't have a learning style. And what I said to him was, I have many learning styles. And I should have said, I have had even more, because we learn differently when we're a kid. What a stupid idiot. What I finally said to him was, how many languages do you know? Oh, that's just memorization. I was talking to another psychology guy, a cool guy from Iran. I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want him associated with anything that he might. Well, I don't know if he's from Iran. He's Iranian. As I recall, he speaks English perfectly. But he's a very relaxed and calm sort of person. And I was asking him about that, like about memorization and language. And he said, languages in particular. He said, well, languages, they're really, really complicated. They're not, like you memorize certain things, but then you got to mix and match. I mean, there's no way I've memorized this script. I could, right? But what we do is we improvise with language. We improvise with it. It's like you wouldn't go up to Louis Armstrong or Miles Davis. Hey, you memorized that. No, they've internalized it, but they have memorized the basics. And then they go with the flow. And that's what you got to do with languages. So, Jess, baby, you're all screwed up when it comes to learning. You don't know how to learn yourself. See, what he was doing was avoiding the question. So he's learned English well enough. But I'd like to see him try to write poetry like I can. I'd like to see him write poetry like Pauline can. And she's only been writing it, like in a concentrated manner for a little over a year. But he wouldn't be able to learn it because, his idea is, for him, learning is a term of praise. Like poetry is a term of praise for the faux gauches. They're going around, the aggressive propagandists, they're going around saying, I write poetry and you don't. Well, yeah, I don't know. Like when you look at Greek meaning for poetry, it means something like to make or to do. You make something. It's kind of like a little bit of a craft. It's not that exclusively, but you'd better have some craftsmanship. I just sneer at you. I try to be kind. Usually I'll do it inwardly. But here, when I'm not talking about anyone in particular, except for Jess Baby, because he's using Pauline's money and my money and our dog's money to squat over people at the university. I saw him call down in a 2.5-hour class. I think it should have been 3 hours, but 2.5-hour class. It was a sound bite. No, it was a sound chomp. There was one kid who talked to, I believe it was about a learning style, and he was saying, hey, so and so up there, he's got a learning style. On my coin, Pauline's coin, and our dog's coin. So what he was doing, you see how that was aggressive, right? And it wasn't just like when he's going around, I can teach you how to learn. That's not just aggressive propaganda stuff. When he's hammering on that kid up there, you see, that's aggressive dictatorship. Mm-hmm. So he's just throwing his rather substantial, physically as well as mentally, weight around. I wish he'd learn how to lose some weight. Lose some weight, Jess, baby, especially between the ears. So I'm not recommending this to anyone, much less everyone. But it's something that I found works for me with languages that are related to English. So I used it for Creole, West African Creole, which is a Creole there. And that I was using the New Testament as the bilingual, going back and forth. Are you mad because I didn't give you some? And I've done it now with Agatha Christie, and I've done it into Dutch, and then the Belgiar Sylvia Plath into Norwegian, and I'm working on a preliminary fashion on using it for Portuguese. I'm starting with the Old Testament, hammering through that. And I'm going to have to acquire a little bit of with the Dutch. I've never taken any, I've kind of skimmed through some of the grammar and stuff like that, but I've never taken a grammar course or anything like that. Same thing with Norwegian, kind of skimmed through a little bit of grammar. The basic thing is you kind of configure the grammar out if you know some English, or a lot of it, you know some German, a fair amount of it, as I do. And, but yeah, I'm going to be working on Persian, just trying to figure it out, so I basically know the script, the Arabic script, and it's going to be a real challenge. Hungarian too, and even Polish is going to be a challenge. I've studied some Russian and stuff like that. I'm doing it with a 1912 a Russian version of the New Testament, and it's even got the old-fashioned Cyrillic alphabet. It's a fascinating little exercise, and stuff like that. So I'm of course going through the German. I've taken a fair amount of German at university. Das Buch Mormon. So it's not just the Bible. Oh, well, there must be like 40 versions in different languages of the Book of Mormon, and that one's going to be fun. Well, it is fun. Sometimes I'll take that when I'm getting my infusion over at the hospital. Das Buch Mormon, and it's fun because often not off because of the stuff I have to take to help with. Even when I was on dexamethasone, I found I'd be drowsing off when I'd be taking stuff in case I have an allergic reaction.
So they give you allergy medication?
They do.
While you're getting the infusion?
2 different kinds.
Yep. So anyway, I was gonna say earlier that I really think that they should teach some sort of shorthand. I don't know what kind, but it should be taught in school to kids, because I do the same thing. I've developed my own kind of shorthand for things. I use different symbols and stuff while I'm writing, just so that I don't have to write everything out.
Yeah, and you did it way before I did, because you were having trouble with the wrists, and you might have been even doing it before, right? Before you had trouble with your wrists and your hands.
When I started doing it, honestly, I couldn't tell you. But I do it. So if I'm watching a show, sometimes I'll be writing everything. It's not word for word, but
Well, you get lots of down.
Sometimes I'll write everything. I'll basically have a transcript from the show.
Yeah, well, when you're watching the great courses, you take, I think, pretty good notes from
I
those
do
sorts of
take
things.
pretty good notes from those, but anyway, it could be from anything. If there's some TV series that I really think is, then I'll just be writing while I'm watching. It keeps me focused on what I'm watching or what I'm listening to. If I'm listening to audiobook, it's a little bit harder for me to stay focused with writing. But if I'm watching and I'm writing, somehow it helps. So, but yeah, I think the shorthand would really help people so that they could concentrate better.
When they weren't on the keyboard. But
I think it's I think it's the anxiety thing, honestly. I think it's seeing people, and I get stressed out, right? So a lot of the time when it feels like my brain, like parts of it turn off, like there's walls in there or something. When there's people, I can't, but...
It's hard to think clearly when you're stressed out.
Yeah.
And people are increasingly so stressful.
Yeah. So if I should just be writing all the time while I'm talking to people, I bet that would make them uncomfortable, though.
Well, many of them would deserve it. Why shouldn't you make them feel uncomfortable when they're in the business, it seems like, of making you and me uncomfortable?
Honestly. Shorthand, though. I mean, they've taken so much out of the curriculum for students, like cursive writing. Chuck some stuff in.
So I'll give you an example of people making you uncomfortable. I'm on the road in the subway, and I've just finished ordering something up, guy walks in behind me, and he starts laughing. And I'm going, well, maybe he was kind of impressed in a funny sort of way of how fast I ordered it or something like that. So boom, 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 I finishing ordering it up. And they're just getting ready to wrap it up. And so I realized, I interpret people would never get in my face about something, because I'd never get in someone's face. The big guy. I don't really notice him until I turn and he says, "What's with the mask?" Remember how I've been saying for a long time, I'm afraid to walk down the street in a mask, because I'm afraid some militia type or someone who I want to be is just going to pound me out. So yeah, what's with the mask? So he's got tattoos all over himself, lots of muscles over himself and inside, especially between the ears. And of course I saw his car after I went out. Vehicle, 4x4, black in color, and running.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't hot when I was gone, was it? Running? What's he running it for? Doesn't he know how to start it?
Cool when he gets into the.
Yeah, but you see, it wasn't warm when I remember.
I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't warm. It's just because, hey, I don't exactly know how to start it up sometimes. Duh. So I'll leave it running so I can make a running start or whatever. Yeah. So what's with the mask? So I've got it all prepared, and it's true. Well, I've got cancer. So that changes the conversation, you see what I'm saying? And I say my immune system is really low. And it's because of the cancer, the type of cancer I got. Bone marrow cancer affects the bone marrow, where you develop pretty well all of your immune system. And then the 2 chemos that they give me, or the treatments, one is chemo, they both affect the bone marrow, and they lower my immune system. And then I said, I'm over 60, Fair enough. What the?
Yeah.
World Trade Federation?
There's so many people out there that they honestly believe
what business is it of yours? I should have been saying.
He has he has the right to validate your whatever, your existence or your.
Whatever I do,
decision.
Like he's making.
I mean, it's funny.
It was a
like
real
the other day,
aggressive dictatorship sort of thing. It should have been me saying to him, "What's with not wearing a mask, dude?"
Well, I mean, whatever. But couple weeks ago, it was more than the other day ago. But anyway, a woman had said something to me, and she was like, "Do you expect me to feel sorry for you, or do you think I should feel," or something like that? And I was like, "No,
You've been talking about some of the troubles we've had. She's talked about. You've listened to her talk about her troubles too.
Well, it wasn't. This was just an ongoing. It's something from before. Somebody had brought me something. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But so anyway, I said, I don't really care what you think of me.
I know there's a person.
She's very upset now. She's not talking to me.
Oh.
But
and Pauline's going. Pauline mentioned that, and I said, "Well, that's like only encouraging you, not talking." When she's saying stuff like that, that's what you want.
Because I know how she is. It's just her, but whatever. It really makes me upset that there are a lot of people out there that they think that they're somehow the authority on how you should be or what you should say, what you